Located in the town of Hyde Park, New York, on the east bank of the Hudson River, the Franklin D. Roosevelt and Eleanor Roosevelt National Historic Sites include 3 national parks and Roosevelt family homes: Springwood, the main house; Valkill, Eleanor Roosevelt's home; and Top Cottage, Franklin's informal, smaller home. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, FDR, was the 32nd President of the United States and the country's longest-serving president, and his Presidential Library and Museum is also on the grounds of the former family estate. Springwood was purchased by FDR's father, James Roosevelt, in 1867, and it is where Franklin D. Roosevelt was born and grew up. Originally a gray clapboard building, the house was extensively remodeled in 1916 to add 2 full wings, a portico, and exterior stucco. In 1905, after Franklin and Eleanor Roosevelt married, the young couple moved in with his mother, Sarah. Although the house belonged to his mother until her death in 1941, Springwood was FDR's principal residence throughout his life. Valkill was the home of Eleanor Roosevelt, and it is where she and FDR entertained friends, the press, activists, and official state visitors in a relaxed atmosphere. Top Cottage was built at the easternmost end of Franklin's estate on land purchased in 1937. It was designed to emulate the Dutch colonial architecture found throughout the Hudson River Valley. FDR originally imagined Top Cottage as a place where he could return to private life after his second term as president. He planned the cottage with accessibility in mind to accommodate his wheelchair and to give him greater independence. These locations also saw their fair share of famous guests such as prime ministers, actors, entertainers, civil rights leaders, and even royalty. FDR was born in Hyde Park, New York on January 30th, 1882. He was the son of James Roosevelt and Sarah Delano Roosevelt. Franklin went to Harvard College and Columbia Law School. After graduating, he practiced law with a prominent New York City law firm before entering politics in 1910. He was elected to the New York State Senate as a Democrat from his traditionally Republican home district. On March 12, 1913, FDR received the nomination to become Woodrow Wilson's Assistant Secretary of the Navy. Confirmed unanimously by the Senate, Roosevelt was just 31 years old, the youngest Assistant Secretary of the Navy. In 1905, he married a distant cousin, Anna Eleanor Roosevelt, who was the niece of President Theodore Roosevelt. Franklin and Eleanor had 6 children. In the summer of 1921, FDR contracted polio, and despite courageous efforts to overcome this illness, he never regained the use of his legs. Because of his disability, FDR became a national advocate for care and cure on behalf of polio sufferers, establishing, through philanthropy, a private therapeutic center at Warm Springs, Georgia, and the March of Dimes Fund Drive. In the political realm, he promoted the presidential aspirations of Governor Al Smith, the Democratic nominee in 1928. In that same year, and again in 1930, FDR was elected governor of New York and effectively led the state's efforts to mitigate the worst of the economic and social distress arising in the early Depression years, earning acclaim that led to his nomination for the presidency in 1932. When he was inaugurated in March 1933, FDR was faced with the greatest crisis in American history since the Civil War, the Great Depression. He undertook immediate actions to initiate his New Deal programs. To halt depositors' panic, he temporarily closed the banks. During his first 100 days in office, FDR worked with a special session of Congress to pass recovery legislation which set up alphabetical agencies, such as the AAA, Agricultural Adjustment Administration, to support farm prices, and the CCC, Civilian Conservation Corps, to employ young people. Another flurry of New Deal legislation followed in 1935, including the establishment of the Works Progress Administration, WPA, renamed in 1939 as the Work Projects Administration, which provided jobs not only for laborers, but also for artists, writers, musicians, and the Social Security Act, which provided unemployment compensation and a program of old age and survivors' benefits. Franklin and Eleanor strongly believed in the importance of land conservation and sustainable food production. The home garden, located on the Springwood estate, and a smaller garden at Valkill were evidence of their commitment to these ideals. Today, National Park horticulturalists and volunteers lovingly maintain the gardens. In 1939, with the outbreak of war in Europe imminent, Roosevelt began focusing on foreign affairs. When Germany invaded Poland in September 1939, Roosevelt stated that although the nation was neutral, he did not expect America to remain inactive in the face of this aggression. Accordingly, he tried to make American aid available to Britain, France, and China. He also took measures to build up the American armed forces despite isolationist opposition. The Japanese surprise attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, followed 4 days later by Germany's and Italy's declarations of war against the United States, brought the nation irrevocably into the fight. Roosevelt exercised his powers as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, working with his military advisors, overriding them when necessary. He was a key decision-maker regarding wartime strategy. Ultimately, he built and led the Grand Alliance, which he named the United Nations. It was Roosevelt's vision, being realized at his direction as the war ended, that the UN would become the great permanent peacekeeping and problem-solving world body it is today. The pressures of war and domestic politics weighed heavily on FDR. During a vacation in Warm Springs, Georgia, on April 12, 1945, he suffered a massive stroke and died shortly after, without regaining consciousness. President Roosevelt was buried in the rose garden of his estate. In 1941, Roosevelt dedicated his papers and a new building to house them on the estate as the Franklin D. Roosevelt Presidential Library and Museum. Since 1946, the National Park Service has administered the estate as a National Historic Site, which is open to the public. The National Park Service works to protect and maintain the sites, the grounds, gardens, houses, and all the buildings that are part of the estate, such as the stables and the ice houses. Advancing the Roosevelt legacy was furthered in November 2003 when the Franklin D. Roosevelt Presidential Library and Museum, with the National Park Service and the private nonprofit Franklin and Eleanor Roosevelt Institute, opened the Henry A. Wallace Visitor and Education Center, the first new facility added to the Roosevelt estate since the library was constructed in 1941. This visitor center was named after Henry A. Wallace, who served as Secretary of Agriculture from 1933 to 1940 and as Vice President during Franklin Roosevelt's third term. The Wallace Center offers visitors an array of services designed to enhance their experiences in Hyde Park. Permanent museum exhibits at the Presidential Library tell the story of the Roosevelt presidency, beginning in the depths of the Great Depression and continuing through the New Deal and World War II, with an emphasis on both Franklin and Eleanor Roosevelt's relationship with the American people. Over the years, the historical sites have become a cherished part of the national and local communities as a place of learning, ecological value, relaxation, and spiritual enrichment, and partner with colleges and schools on diverse intern and education programs. The home garden is maintained through the support of volunteers who help plant, maintain, and harvest the crops. Produce is donated by the park's philanthropic partner, the Franklin D. Roosevelt Hyde Park Foundation, to Duchess Outreach in Poughkeepsie. The Franklin D. Roosevelt National Historic Site is in the Hudson River Valley National Heritage Area and is the gateway to the area's rich historical, cultural, and recreational resources. It provides many opportunities for those seeking solitude and enrichment as they enjoy its stunning rural location, consisting of more than 1,000 acres of gardens and trails. The estate itself boasts more than 12 miles of interconnecting trails, such as the Roosevelt Farm Lane Trail, which connects Springwood with Valkill and continues up to Top Cottage. Other trails extend west to the bank of the majestic Hudson River, allowing visitors to explore and appreciate the natural setting and the quiet beauty of ancient woods. These trails are part of the Hyde Park Trail System and are designated as Hudson River Valley Greenway Trails. The National Park Service works tirelessly to maintain and improve the health of the diverse environmental communities around the sites through several ecological initiatives, such as the Historic Tree Preservation Program. It retains many of the original buildings, such as the houses, Springwood, Valkill, Top Cottage, the stables, ice houses, and a much-loved favorite, the Rose Garden. Located northeast of Springwood and immediately west of the Presidential Library, the Rose Garden was the family's formal garden. The garden also includes the greenhouse, which was constructed in 1906. Today, a main focal point is the grave marker of Franklin and Eleanor Roosevelt on the central lawn. This unadorned Vermont white marble block was designed by FDR and placed according to his wishes in October of 1945. The marker is simply inscribed with the names and life dates of the Roosevelts.